This country is younger than the internet, but inside its borders are castles built into cliffs, lakes that freeze into fairy tales, and rivers so green they look fake. One of those castles? It fed its rebel lord through a labyrinth of secret tunnels. One river marked the bloodiest front line of World War I. And one marriage tradition? Honestly, you'll think I'm making it up. Stories like these fill every corner of this country. And yet, most people couldn't find it on a map. This is Slovenia, the masterpiece hiding in plain sight. Look at these mountains. What you're seeing really shouldn't exist. Because 250 million years ago, Slovenia was underwater. The entire country sat beneath the Tethys Ocean, a warm, shallow sea where ancient life thrived and died. But Slovenia didn't just rise from that ocean. It froze its past in stone, and you can still touch it today. At Zelenci Springs near Kranjska Gora, you can still see the connection. Those emerald waters bubbling up from below, they're filtered through limestone that formed on the ocean floor. The minerals in that water are older than the continents. Drive the mountain roads around Triglav, and you're literally driving on compressed coral reefs. Every tunnel blasted through rock, every cliff face carved for the highway, it's all ancient seafloor thrust skyward. And the mountain goats you see scaling impossible cliffs? They're climbing on creatures that lived 250 million years ago. Every ledge they stand on was once home to coral, sea lilies, and ancient shellfish. The most extraordinary part? You can still find them with your own hands. A chipped rock on a mountain trail might reveal the spiral of an ammonite, or the delicate stalk of a crinoid. But sometimes what you find changes everything. Near the quiet village of Skrbina, paleontologists unearthed something astonishing. A creature with no front legs, a ribbon-like spine, and only the faintest traces of hind limbs. They named it Adriosaurus. Not quite a lizard, not yet a snake. Preserved in Slovenian limestone, it's a fossilized snapshot of evolution. A 95 million year old spine you can still trace with your finger from a time when nature was redrawing how movement worked. But time didn't stop there. Millions of years passed. Oceans rose and fell. Civilizations came and went, and by the Middle Ages, Slovenia faced a new kind of struggle. Not extinction, but invasion. Slovenia looks peaceful today, but look closer, and you'll find a country built to survive. Because no one builds 500 castles unless they've been attacked from every direction. Tuj is Slovenia's oldest living town, a time capsule of Roman ruins, medieval towers, and Baroque rooftops layered into one hill. When the Magyars came thundering out of the east in the 10th century, Tuj built the first real castle. High on a hill, impossible to surround. It worked. The Magyar raids stopped at these walls. Then came the Counts of Chelyabinsk, and everything changed. A simple stronghold became a fortress city. Frederick's Tower, 4 stories of stone defiance, pentagonal bastions, walls within walls. For over 100 years, no army laid a hand on Chelyabinsk. Not one breach, not one surrender. But the Ottomans were coming, and Slovenia's next move? Genius. At Otočec, they didn't just build a castle. They literally diverted an entire river, turned their fortress into an island. If you can't reach it, you can't conquer it. And then there's Snezhnik, perfectly preserved, gleaming white, like a fairy tale with a moat. By the 1600s, nobody needed to fight anymore. This was wealth on display, power through beauty, not walls. So well defended, they stopped building for war altogether. Slovenia's history doesn't just sit in museums, it still crowns hills, guards rivers, and lines the streets. This land was always wanted, so it was always defended. But some traditions survived even better than the castles. What if I told you there's a place in Europe where the Middle Ages never ended, where men still propose marriage in the most bizarre way imaginable? High in the Alps, at 1,600 meters, Velika Planina spreads out like a myth. An ancient plateau ringed by jagged peaks and scattered with wooden huts. One of the most spectacular traditional villages on Earth. Every summer, shepherds bring their herds up ancient mountain paths to wooden huts covered in traditional spruce shingles. When winter comes, they retreat to the valleys below, leaving the plateau to the snow and wind. Up here, children learn to make cheese before they learn to read. And not just any cheese, the same recipe their great-grandfathers used, carved into muscle memory like a prayer. And those marriage proposals? Shepherds carved romantic promises into pear-shaped cheese that resembled women's breasts. Made in pairs, one for him, one for her. If she accepted the cheese, she accepted his courtship. For centuries, love in Slovenia was literally cheesy. While the world raced toward tomorrow, up here they convinced tomorrow to wait. And now, thousands of tourists come seeking what their ancestors never forgot. The Slovenia we've been exploring, its castles, its traditions, its quiet mountain life, existed for centuries without actually being Slovenia at all. It was Austrian, then Yugoslav. But in 1991, this corner of Europe pulled off the perfect escape. While much of Yugoslavia crumbled into war, Slovenia slipped away quietly. No fanfare, just conviction. In June 1991, Slovenia declared itself free. No one believed it would work. The Yugoslav army rolled in, but the Slovenians didn't back down. Fighting broke out on mountain roads and border crossings. But this wasn't just soldiers fighting soldiers. Ordinary Slovenians, farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, blocked tank columns with their own cars. Families stood in the middle of mountain roads, refusing to move. At Nova Gorica on the Italian border, Slovenian special forces destroyed Yugoslav tanks with anti-tank rockets. At border posts like Holmec, Yugoslav guards simply changed uniforms and became Slovenian guards. Same people, different country. 10 days, that's all it took. No drawn-out sieges, no cities flattened. Just a retreat and a flag left standing. And Slovenia was suddenly a country. But not everyone stayed to see it. In the wine hills of Brda, the village of Slapnik lost its last residents that same year, 1991. While Slovenia was being born, entire villages were dying. Decades later, Ljubljana Castle overlooks cafes where people sip coffee in peace. Children play beneath the same flag that once meant revolution. You won't find scars here, just a country that walked out of history and kept walking. But Slovenia never left the world behind. It became the place where worlds meet. On the morning of June 26, 1991, the people of Piran woke up Slovenian. The night before, they'd gone to sleep Yugoslav. Same Venetian squares, same view across the Adriatic, but suddenly a different country. Slovenia has just 46 kilometers of coastline, less than many lakes. But packed into that sliver is a town so beautiful, UNESCO had to protect it. You can walk from Slovenia to Croatia in 3 minutes. But it took decades to agree where exactly the border runs through the bay. Drive inland to Maribor, and you'll find Slovenia's wine country. Follow the wine route through the hills above the city, and your guide will show you something incredible. The world's oldest producing grapevine growing on a building in downtown Maribor. 400 years old. It survived Ottoman sieges, world wars, and communist collectivization. Same plant, same location, same family recipes. From Slovenia's wine capital, we head south to Ljubljana, the actual capital. Ljubljana feels different from other European capitals. There's no traffic chaos, no urban stress, just tree-lined streets where people cycle to work and outdoor cafes that stretch along an emerald river. The old town rises in gentle terraces from the Ljubljanica, crowned by a medieval castle that surveys it all. Walk across the bridges and you'll find thousands of love locks left by couples, a tradition that's turned the city's crossings into monuments to romance. And those 4 bronze dragons guarding the Dragon Bridge. They're based on the legend that Jason and the Argonauts slayed a dragon here while fleeing with the Golden Fleece. Locals call it the Beloved City, Ljubljana in Slovene. And when you walk these peaceful streets, you understand why. Behind that beauty lies one man's obsession. Jože Plečnik spent decades reshaping Ljubljana, and his influence is everywhere you look. The Triple Bridge, he turned one medieval bridge into three without demolishing the original. The National Library, a temple to books built like a Venetian palace. The Central Market, covered colonnades that follow the curve of the river. Jail Cemetery, where even death gets monumental Greek columns. All from one architect's singular vision of what a perfect city should look like. In the karst countryside near the Italian border, Slovenia kept something alive that the rest of the world almost lost. A bloodline that's been unbroken for over 400 years. At Lipica, white horses move like poetry in motion. These aren't ordinary horses. Every Lipizzaner in the world, from Vienna's Spanish riding school to royal stables across Europe, traces back to this one place. Founded in 1580, Lipica was where the Habsburgs decided to create the perfect horse. But here's the twist. These famous white horses, they're not born white. Every single one starts life dark brown or black, then slowly transforms to pure white over 7 to 8 years. It's like watching them earn their royal destiny, one shade at a time. Like those horses, Slovenia itself transformed slowly. It became the seam where Europe stitches itself together. Austrian discipline with Mediterranean flair. Germanic precision with Slavic soul. The place where Central Europe meets the Balkans, where the Alps touch the Adriatic. And flowing through the heart of it all is the river that made it possible. The Socha River carved Slovenia from solid rock. Now it's where people come to test their courage. But courage here means something very different than it used to. The Socha begins as a whisper in the Julian Alps, a trickle of meltwater that becomes thunder. It rises from alpine snowmelt, winds through limestone carved by oceans, and becomes a colour no camera can truly capture. Slovenia's Emerald River. But beneath that beauty, the river hides scars. For 2 years, this was hell, the Isonzo Front. World War I came to Slovenia, and this river became the front line between Austria, Hungary, and Italy. 12 battles fought along these banks, where soldiers died for villages whose names they couldn't pronounce. And yet today, that same water falls like poetry. At Kozjak Falls, light pierces the canyon like cathedral windows. Through Pokljuka Gorge, the river cuts passages so narrow you can touch both walls. At Boka, 144 meters of raw force crashes into pools where children now swim. What once divided armies now pulls people together. At Most Nasochi, the ancient bridge that gave the town its name now carries families instead of armies. Around Bovec, the river becomes a playground where rafters navigate churning rapids and crystal clear pools. Canyoneers rappel down waterfalls, and leap into emerald pools. The ultimate test of nerve in a place that's seen every kind of courage. They're jumping into the same pools where soldiers once fell. But Slovenia's relationship with water doesn't stop at rivers. In one valley, water disappears completely. Črnica Lake, a lake that isn't always there. For 8 months, it's Slovenia's largest lake. For 4 months, it's farmland. Same place, different world. Locals have learned to live with this rhythm for centuries. They harvest hay where fish swam, ice skate where they mowed grass, always knowing the water will return when it's ready. Not controlling it, just trusting it. Maybe that's the secret, learning to move with the land, not against it. Slovenia isn't an easy place to build, and that's the point. Instead of breaking the land, they built with it. And some of these places you're about to see honestly defy logic. Built by 10,000 Russian prisoners during World War I, the Vršić Pass climbs through 50 switchbacks cut into living rock. Many prisoners died from avalanches while building it, and their comrades honoured them by constructing a wooden chapel. Simple bark and timber, still standing 100 years later. Each curve remembers a life and a lesson in humility. Beneath Slovenia lies a second world where the Reka River disappears into the earth, creating a canyon 100 meters deep underground. At Škocjan Caves, engineers suspended a walkway 45 meters above this underground river in total darkness. They didn't erase the danger, they respected it. In the high forests of Pohorje, the Rogla treetop walk spirals 37 meters up through the canopy in a tower that sways in the wind but never falls. It curves around living trees without damaging them, floating through a world of spruce and fir where eagles nest and deer graze in the clearings below. But nowhere is this harmony more perfect than Prijama Castle, built literally inside a 123-meter cliff face. You can't tell where rock ends and castle begins. In 1483, the rebellious knight Erazem Luaga killed a high marshal at the Vienna court and fled here when Holy Roman Emperor Frederick III sent an entire army to capture him. What happens next sounds made up. It's not. They besieged the castle for over a year, trying to starve him out. But Erazem had the ultimate secret: tunnels through 14 kilometers of cave system that let him smuggle in food and supplies. To mock his attackers, Erazem would pelt them with fresh cherries and once sent out an entire roasted pig, proving he wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. The siege ended when a bribed servant raised a flag to signal when Erazem was in his most vulnerable position, in the outhouse outside the castle walls. One cannonball through the bathroom wall and Slovenia's Robin Hood was history. The castle has been rebuilt in this exact same cliff 4 different times over 8 centuries, each time using the mountain as fortress, foundation, and escape route. The castle isn't beside the cave, it is the cave. Those 14 kilometers that helped Erezem escape, they were just a doorway into a country beneath the country. You don't walk into Postojna Cave, you ride in, on a train that disappears into the earth like something out of a science fiction movie. Deep into the mountain, you can mail postcards from the world's first subterranean post office, operating since 1899. And yes, they still deliver them. But the real residents of this kingdom, they've never seen sunlight, and they might outlive you. In the eternal darkness live olms, blind salamanders that locals call baby dragons. These ghostly creatures survive over 100 years, can go 8 years without food, and exist nowhere else on Earth. 24 kilometers of tunnels, carved not by machines but by water. Over 2 million years, drop by drop. But Slovenia's hidden worlds aren't just underground. Look at this place. It looks almost too perfect to be real. It's not just nature. It's a country that decided to build itself like a fairy tale, and then actually did it. And the most beautiful part, it's hiding where tourists never look. The Julian Alps hide Slovenia's greatest masterpiece. This is Bled, where nature and fairy tale decided to collaborate. An island church in the middle of a glacial lake, reached only by wooden boats that glide across water so still it mirrors the sky. These aren't just any boats, they're called pletnas, and they've been operated by the same families for over 600 years, a tradition passed down through generations like a sacred trust. The island itself holds mysteries. Ring the bell in the church 3 times and your wish comes true. But there's a catch. Getting married here? The groom must carry his bride up 99 stone steps to the altar. It's a test of strength that's blessed marriages for centuries, and somehow every groom still tries. You'd think it would freeze your bones. But in summer, it's warmer than it has any right to be. And yes, people really do swim here. Winter paints it entirely different. Ice-edged shores, snow-heavy pines, the island church standing isolated in a world of white. And when you're done, you'll earn your reward, the famous Bled cream cake. But here's the thing, it can only be made at one hotel. They've perfected the recipe since 1953 and sold over 15 million slices, each one made to the exact same standard. At Periknik Falls, water drops 52 meters through a gap in the rock so narrow you can walk behind the waterfall itself. Stand there and watch the world through a curtain of water, Slovenia framed by liquid glass. In autumn, the surrounding beech forests ignite in shades of amber and scarlet, creating a natural cathedral where water and colour merge into something magical. Through Vintgar Gorge, wooden walkways float above an emerald river that cuts through rock like liquid light. The boardwalks stretch for over a kilometre with no support pillars touching the riverbed below, suspended as if by magic. The Radovna River runs that impossible green because of limestone particles suspended in the water, creating a color so vivid it almost seems artificial. This gorge was officially discovered in 1891, despite locals knowing about it for centuries. Sometimes the most beautiful secrets hide in plain sight. High in the hills above the valleys, Jamnik Church stands in perfect isolation on the highest point for miles around. Spring brings the first touch of green to the rolling hills below. Summer finds it floating above morning clouds, a vision that stops photographers in their tracks. Autumn surrounds it with forests blazing in every shade of fire. Winter transforms it into a beacon standing alone against howling storms in a world of white. It's so beautiful that couples fly from around the world to marry in this tiny sanctuary, despite it being hours from the nearest city. Slovenia loves its mountaintop churches. Above Kobarid, another sanctuary offers the same breathtaking views and profound silence. But here's Slovenia's best-kept secret. 20 kilometers from famous Bled, Bohinj stretches like a mirror between the mountains. This is Slovenia's largest natural lake, but most tourists never find it because Bled gets all the attention. The water becomes so still you can't tell where it ends, and the sky begins. Waterfalls cascade from surrounding cliffs as mountain streams pour into the lake, creating a constant symphony of rushing water. The lake has no visible outlet. It just disappears underground through cast caves, a hidden paradise that seems to swallow its own reflection. Above the hidden lake rises Triglav, Slovenia's highest peak and the mountain that gives the country its soul. At 2,864 meters, it's more than just a mountain. It's on Slovenia's flag, and locals say you're not truly Slovenian until you've climbed it. In 1895, a priest bought the summit for 1 coin and built this tower in 5 hours, just to keep it Slovenian forever. Surrounding Triglav spreads Slovenia's only national park, covering just 4% of the country, yet containing over 7,000 species. Slovenia is Europe's third most forested nation. More trees packed into this tiny space than almost anywhere else on the continent. Slovenia is smaller than New Jersey, but inside it lives a kingdom of mountains, oceans, time machines, and fairy tales. It's not a country that demands attention. It rewards curiosity. The deeper you dig, the more you uncover of Europe's hidden masterpiece. But what if I told you there's another European country that went from ruling the world to being completely forgotten by it. Click on the screen now to discover what 99% of Portugal's visitors never do.